This week on Motivation and Confidence, we talk about how creativity helps. Now, you may say in what sense, but we're talking about everything. Stay tuned. All right, everybody worldwide, you're now tuned into Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best. And I'm your host, Tom Danger. Back this week with a new episode. And this week we're going to talk about how creativity helps. Now, at some point in our lives, all of us have been creative. And I know sometimes when looking at social media, we look at certain platforms and we say like, man, I wish that I was creative like that, or that person creates really cool content, and this person has better type of art. And that's not necessarily true, because art and creativity is all perspective. So let's stick with the basics of how each of us have a certain level of creativity. And it goes back to our childhood, right? Do you remember growing up and you were a kid and you would get that free time to just go play, and there was no particular game or anything that was specific for you to play, but you made something up. You get with your friends and you make up a game. This just bugged me out, right? So thinking about games as kids, and I'm keeping it 100 because most of my listeners are us. Like, where did hot peas and butter come from? Was that like a slave game or something like that, right? It had to be like hot peas and butter, and then you come to get your supper with something like come to get your supper, and you get the belt and you chase each other and you start like whipping each other like, like why did we think of this game, and why did I play it as a kid, and why was it cool, and why is it that every time we played that game it only ended once a fight broke out, because somebody would get mad that they got hit with the belt, the shoe, or whatever object it was too hard. It was sort of like you playing too much. Why? Why do we... I'm tripping right now, but when you're a kid and you think about games, so think about the other cool games like freeze tag. Like, where did freeze tag come from? Like, you run and somebody touch you, you can't move. Like, where do we think of that? Like, let's just run, and if one of us touch each other, we can't move. And if we can't move, or like, what's another game we was playing? Or like, engine number 9. Like when you try to pick each other to play the game, right? It's engine number 9 going down Chicago line. If my drink of all the tab, do you want your money back? Like, where? We had to think of things to keep ourselves entertained at the end of the day, and that's all that it was. So I think some of the things that we did was based upon what we seen in our upbringing, whether it was with our families, whether it was through tradition, TV, radio, hearsay, but we had to think of ways to always be creative. And then, as a kid also, like, imagine when you would get in trouble with your mother and she would ask you, like, did you do that? And you'd be like, no. And she looking at you and she know that you telling the story, but you had to figure out a way to get yourself out of that situation. So what you do? You told a story. And in that story is still more creativity. So as you can see through these basic examples, there's certain levels of creativity that we are innately, I won't say born with, but we have the ability to enhance and hone to keep ourselves out of trouble. It's sort of like a defense mechanism. Instead of getting ourselves in trouble to get ourselves out of trouble, we get creative with stories. And it all boils down to stories and how creative you can be with a story. Take that a step further. So now, like, everyone can be an artist. Everyone is an artist. And the question is, how do you choose to express your art? Some people choose to express their art through painting. Some people choose to express their art through fashion, through music, movies. There is no container that can put the bucket of all forms of art in, because each person can interpret art in a different way. And if you look right now, creativity is the driver for our social interaction. The majority of the time that we spend on social media is basically due to creativity. And if you're the type of person that struggles with creating content based on what you see other people do, if you look at the people who are mostly successful, they are the ones who are unexcusably themselves, right? So when you look at certain dances that come out, there's somebody that created a dance in their own way, or took pieces of different dances and put them together. And then when it comes out, a bunch of people see it, and now it becomes a trend, right? So then what happens sometimes is that other people may look at the dance and be like, oh, that one got millions of views, so if I put out my dance video and it doesn't get 1 million views, that it's a flop. That's not true. It's just based on, I don't even want to say the algorithm, it's just based on how many people rock with it. You could be super creative and nobody's heard about you. There are millions of people who are super creative, super talented, and just choose not to put themselves out there. A lot of creative people that I speak with, they don't even like to be on social media. And the flip side of that is basically criticism, right? So again, how creativity helps. And in today's climate, creativity is the new form of education, right? Because it is a combination of information and entertainment. And it's actually called the bucket of infotainment. So how quickly can we learn new things? How quickly can we be introduced to people in 15 seconds? I recently heard someone say that you actually only have 3 to 4 seconds to grab a person's attention when you're doing something on social media. And I don't think that any of us should be intimidated by this, because the pace in which information is coming at us is so quick that we have to find the lanes in which we can absorb it, right? And then even when you think about creativity and how it helps in business, you can have a problem that is extremely complex, and you have to get creative in your thinking to figure things out, right? Now, there are different levels of creativity. So some people can create things that are a little bit more intricate than others. Some people are extremely detailed. Some people are extremely big picture. And we talk about this in personality types through like a DISC assessment, right? So when you think about creativity in the different personality types, we always talk about the pilot, the flight attendant, the grounds crew, and the air traffic controller. Each of those personality types are creative, but in different ways. So if you look at the air pilot, for example, or the pilot, excuse me, they're very, very big picture. So the person that's doing that comes up with the concepts, they come up with the concept for something, but they're not the ones that's actually sketching it out and putting it together. Like when you think of sort of like a Kanye West, right? And that's a good example. Real big ideas, bugged out, but he's not the one that's physically designing the lights. He's not the one physically designing the clothing. He's not the one writing all the lyrics, but he has to give it the final touch before it is presented to the public, right? And then you have other personality types that are the flight attendant that wants everyone to feel good. And in those personalities, it's sort of like when I'm on camera, how can I come across as charismatic as possible to draw people in, right? Or how can I create something that's going to make people feel warm and fuzzy every time they come within my presence? And then you have the other personality type of the grounds crew that like to stay behind the scenes. And my wife is going to kill me, but she is the perfect example of when you see all the really cool pictures that are online, those are all her ideas. When you look at the shots that are actually for this video, this is all of her concepts. And she likes to stay behind, the scenes, but her input is 150%. There's no way that I could do this without her. So each person in the level of creativity adds to the bucket. And then finally, you have the personality type of the air traffic controller, where they look at the very, very fine details of everything and how it needs to be precisely in order for it to be executed, right? So when you're thinking about creativity and personality types, every personality types have a different level of creativity, and it's all about how it comes together. And most importantly, each of us have to learn what is your creative lane. Once you learn what your creative lane is, then you can just start putting out content. And you'll notice how creativity can actually be used to alleviate stress. Because while your mind may be wandering or worrying about a certain situation, you can actually redirect that energy into the creative process. And I think all of us have heard the terminology or the saying that goes, there's in pain, there's art. So when you think about some of the most beautiful love songs that we've heard, it's because someone has been through a situation, heartbreak, cheated on, a messy relationship. Those make the best songs when we listen to them. We're like, oh my God, this is my joy. Oh my God, yeah, I feel that. I relate to that so much. I can't believe that, And then you have other songs where, there's a celebration of life and we want to turn up and we want to party, Then there's the other songs where it's like, I'm in deep thought and it's conscious music and it makes me think about things. And we just love all these different avenues and the palettes and the colors of how things come together. And again, it's those songs, it's that particular meal, right? When you talk about food too, and how the creativity in certain meals and how it makes you feel comfortable. We talk about comfort foods, and that creativity can help you not feel sad anymore, or it gives you a temporary alleviation of pain that you may be going through. I know a lot of us, when we're going through things, we want that macaroni and cheese, we want that fried chicken, we want that chocolate ice cream, some of us want that cookie dough, or we want that little cocktail to make us feel good for a minute, all in the creativity of putting it together. So I ask you, in what ways are you creative, and how do you feel like your creativity helps? I would love to hear about it within the comments. Always, thank you so much for tuning in. And like, subscribe, and share. This is Motivation and Confidence, where we help you do your daily best.